Thanks everybody for coming. Got a huge turnout here. My name is Brandon Herbert from Strand Associates. We're the engineering company for the city. We're doing the design of Mulberry Street. I'm the project manager. Matt Flesh is also here from Strand. He's in the back of the room right now, but he'll be available afterwards to discuss any of the exhibits here. Shannon Dolan is also here from Mead and Hunt. They are the planner for the city, but for this project they are also doing the Section 106 paperwork, which is dealing with environment and historic concerns of a project like this. She'll also be presenting later and available to talk. But I'd like to just, talk about the Mulberry Street Reconstruction project. This is public involvement meeting number 1. I'd just like to say that we're at about 30% design, so very preliminary design, and we're holding this meeting at this time specifically to get input before we get too far along, so that we can change the project design according to your concerns and your comments. A little overview of our presentation. We're first going to go over the project location limits, what the current project schedule is, the need for the project, the funding mechanisms and the cost of the project scope, the preliminary cross-section, again, we're here to get your input on that, the proposed detour for the project, and the historic district that's also proposed along the project corridor. The project location and limits are obviously Mulberry Street. We're starting at Madison Street at the south end and going up to Grant Street. We'll actually go just a little bit beyond Grant Street. There's a blue line here that we're showing as stormwater conveyance, and we need to go up a little bit farther because to, take stormwater away from the project area. There's a city-owned right-of-way that we'll be utilizing there for that blue line. We'll also be going 1 block down Fargo Street. Again, that's for stormwater drainage and then to also tie in the sanitary sewer and water main to existing and recently upgraded mains farther down Fargo Street. The current schedule, this is public information meeting number 1. Preliminary design and public information meeting number 2 will be complete in 2017, spring 2017. We'll take your comments and concerns from this meeting. Any other things that you mail in, we have forms over here that you can mail in comments later. My card is here along with Matt. Our information is on the back of the information sheet that you can feel free to call or email, send in any comments after this, but we'll be looking to incorporate comments that we receive into our design for the next public information meeting. Temporary easement acquisition will occur from summer 2017 to 18. Again, temporary easement is very important because we're not going to be requiring any land permanently. It'd just be for temporary grading as part of the project to match back into the yards and such. Complete the final design in summer 2018 in time for public or plan specifications and estimate to the WISDOT. I'll talk about why WISDOT's involved later, but we have to have those to them by August 1st, 2018 to make our bid letting and allow construction to proceed April to October of 2017. The April to October is approximate. That's kind of just the construction season in this part of the state. The need for this project, the existing infrastructure age and condition creates the need for the project. There's poor drainage on this project. You may have noticed that. That's created by limited and very undersized storm sewer. There's actually storm sewer quite a ways on the project, but it's very small pipes and very small inlets, just undersized in general. The poor pavement condition, the lack of proper drainage leads to this pavement deterioration through the freeze-thaw cycle. It cracks the pavement. There's also very minimal pavement structure. We've done soil borings along the project so far, and generally the pavement is about 2.5 to 3.5 inches thick over 4 to 6 inches of base course, which is compare that to what we're proposing, or the standard city construction is 4 inches of asphalt over 12 inches of base course. So that also contributes to the poor pavement condition and what we would expect to be limited lifespan going forward. The street's PACER rating is currently 4 out of 10. PACER is a rating system developed by the UW, but it's used statewide. Municipalities have to classify their streets every year, and 4 is pretty low. Getting towards the 2s and 3s, you're starting to talk about more of a gravel road. And then also the utilities, the water main and the sewer are either undersized and aging. And also when you're replacing a street on top of it, it's smart if they're this age and condition to replace the utilities as well, because you don't have to dig the street up later and replace the asphalt again. The project funding and costs. The roadway and storm sewer costs are 80% funded through the State Transportation Program Urban Grant, up to a total cost of $1.18 million. There's $944,000 of federal grant money. There's free money to the city. That's that 80% of the $1.18 million. And that money, it's important to note that that's kind of a use it or lose it situation, that either you make the project big enough to encompass it, or you just kind of lose out on the money. So the city is trying to utilize that money as much as possible. The preliminary estimated roadway cost is about $1.35 million. This is important to note that that includes that block of Fargo Street, which is not eligible for that $1.18 million because it's off the project corridor. And the preliminary sanitary, sewer, and water main cost is about $1.05 million. That is wholly city costs there. Some of the project scope addresses existing deficiencies. We'll be providing new asphalt pavement, curb and gutter, sidewalk, and curb ramps. The curb ramps will be ADA accessible, which many of them are not right now. Storm sewer, new storm sewer, sanitary sewer, sewer laterals and water services will be replaced all the way to the right-of-way. New water main as well. We're anticipating that some of the services, water services, are going to be lead through this project area due to just the age of the homes. There'll be new pavement markings and some new signage as well. The cross-section selection provides minimal impacts surrounding the roadway. Because of the funding that I discussed, we're required to follow WSDOT guidance for roadways of this classification. It's classified as a minor arterial cross-section, so there's some options available, but we have to kind of stick within that framework, and I'll discuss that a little bit more later. This preliminary cross-section selected would eliminate parking. Bicycle facilities are not required to be provided. However, the preliminary cross-section that we've chosen would accommodate them. That's done partially because of the city's bicycle plan, which was developed in 2005, that states that it is important to accommodate but not encourage bicycle use on Mulberry. And the reason why not encourage is because it's fairly narrow roadway. There is a little bit of truck traffic. It's not really wide enough to paint a true bicycle lane on. So we're trying to accommodate the use of bicycles, but not, mark it as a bicycle pathway. And then also we want to minimize impacts to the terrace width, the trees, and also any historic features, fences behind the sidewalk, steps, things like that along the roadway. Therefore, we chose a fairly narrow cross-section to minimize these impacts. I mentioned that we have to follow WSDOT guidance, and this is a chart from WSDOT Design Guide to Roadways, basically, and we've got here shown, is there a pointer? I don't know if you can see that. This is our arterials and collectors, so we're classified as an arterial. This is the amount of traffic that we have. These are the number of lanes, too, and this is the allowable widths for a no parking roadway, 32 to 36 feet. And as I go forward here, you'll see that our chosen cross-section falls within that. I would note that the existing road is 30 feet back of curb to back of curb, so it would get 2 feet wider. But 32 feet is, actually will be at, I'm sorry, it was at 31 feet. We're at 33 feet. So as you can see, we're pretty minimal in the terms of the cross-section width here. This is the proposed roadway cross-section. It'll have two 14-foot travel lanes. 14 feet is the smallest lane that also is deemed to accommodate bicycle traffic. 2.5-foot wide curb and gutter, 10.5-foot wide terrace or tree lawn, and then 5-foot sidewalks, and then there's about a foot behind the sidewalk to the right-of-way line.
Does that mean there'll be no parking on Mulberry?
Under the proposed cross-section, yes, and that's exactly why we have these meetings, is to talk about it.
Is a 5-foot sidewalk, is that standard anywhere? 5 foot is awful
5-foot sidewalk standard, yes, it is. 5 feet has actually been the current standard according to the Americans with Disabilities Act. There are some things that you can do to get a 4-foot sidewalk, but it involves creating passing zones every certain distance, and 5 foot is a very standard sidewalk width these days.
Just one question, will that go into the tree lawn, or is it going to go into the property owner?
It would move that extra 1 foot width. Many of the sidewalks now are 4 feet on Mulberry Street. It would go into the tree lawn.
What happened to the parking? There's parking on one side now.
The proposed cross-section would eliminate the parking.
Where the cars are going to park in the winter? There's no place to park on one side. Now you're going to take away parking on both sides. That's kind of sad.
I guess they would park in driveways or side streets. There would be no parking allowed under this cross-section.
Why wouldn't that leave it the way it is? Just leave it the road.
Well, the cross-section the width here would allow a very, very minimal parking lane and then therefore no bicycle combination at all. It would also have fairly narrow travel lanes. We have 28 feet of pavement here, and you could do an 11-foot lane, two 11-foot lanes, and then a 6-foot parking lane. You would also have 2 feet of curb pan to utilize there, so you would have an 8-foot section to park in, which is allowable, and this is why we have these meetings. It's just a point of discussion, and this is why I bring it up. You know, we could provide it in certain stretches, the whole length. Yes, sir.
Well, that we're on the parking thing, I think that parking is an absolute essential on this road between the church, the events downtown. Mulberry Street is a very used street for parking on events that happen downtown.
Okay.
And if you get rid of that, that's, you know, I mean, we have a hard enough time trying to get people, you know, to come to a small town to begin with. I think this could really impact a lot of different things on Mulberry Street, eliminating parking.
Okay. And this is exactly why we have these meetings. Yes.
Right, and it's already a hardship for people who don't have parking on their side. So to take it away from everything, I mean, that's ridiculous. So can
Okay.
we fix that?
Well, you can change it. It was observed by, you know, staff and others that the parking seems to be fairly sparsely utilized along there during most times. Special events.
It's needed, it's really needed. There are still homeowners that do utilize it, yeah, not sparsely, but it is needed.
Okay.
Well, just if you go to visit somebody, I mean,
We have parking already on the one side on Washington, and we are the corners, and now
Yeah.
we take Mulberry, we have nothing.
right,
Okay.
definitely needed it.
Okay.
It's bad enough the way it is.
Yep. And this is exactly why we have these meetings. So the comments are noted, that's being recorded, and we'll take into account.
It sounds like there's options, like plan, I mean, so one plan is not to have parking, the other plan would be so when we get to that point, maybe you can outline, you maybe plan that already, what are our options for the different?
Well, we don't have a specific visual for it, but I guess I could describe it. I mean, we have 28 feet of pavement. We don't really want to go wider than that because we're already wider than the existing road, and we're concerned about impacts to the terraces. There's a lot of nice mature trees that, you know, we're trying to save, and so we could, within that 28 feet of asphalt pavement, we could provide a parking lane. It would get rid of any on-street accommodation of bicycles. We are not required to have on-street accommodation. Just the city bicycle plan, you know, encouraged accommodation. So there's just this kind of give and takes. This is exactly why we have these meetings.
Like doing it the way you just described, would the road would be wider than it is now, right? And we'd still do, okay, so in the end, we have more room than we do now to park and to have bicycles use it just the way they are now, right?
Correct. Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
The driving lanes won't be wide.
Under what's proposed, they would be wider. If you went to
Wider will they be from what they are now?
If you went to parking on one side, right.
That's all we've ever had. I've lived there at
Right.
for 50 years.
Yep.
We never park on my side of the street, and I got along just fine.
Yeah. It would be about 6 inches wider. The driving lanes would be about 6 inches. If you did put one side parking with you.
So we gain 6 inches per lane.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So you're saying if you allowed parking, that you would not be counting bicycles?
Correct.
Does that mean that you would be banning them?
No, you would not be banning them. It just wouldn't be following roadway design guidance for accommodating bicycles on the roadway. But we're not required to. We would have been a couple of years ago, but not anymore.
You have a fancy bike lane one street over on Main Street, the whole length of town if they want to ride on it?
That's true on the south side, not on the, yeah, not on the north side though. It's not marked up there, I don't think, is it? No. So there'll be a marked bike lane on the new South Main Street, but not on North Main Street.
Is this construction going to take place at the same time as Main Street to rip up the streets that are?
Nope, and I'll get to that if that's okay.
Great, so it sounds like we've got options, and obviously this is just the first meeting.
Yeah.
It's not set in stone yet.
No, and I mean, it sounds like everyone here is pretty in favor of keeping the parking.
And
So,
also, Main Street Highway 89 is a state highway that they get the last say on, the state.
mhm,
Mulberry Street isn't the same level.
correct, yeah.
So we get to say more about Mulberry Street than we do on Main Street.
Yeah,
We didn't have, if we didn't do the bike thing on Main Street, we would have lost money on the project. This one isn't like that. This
This
one
is
we
not a
get,
mandated one.
this is, thank you.
Right,
Yes.
and the difference is this project doesn't have state funding, it's only federal grant dollars. So it does, I will say it does have to go through WISDOT approval processes. There's a management consultant and a WISDOT project manager that review the design. But under my understanding, we don't have to provide bike lanes or bike accommodations. So, all right. Thanks for all your comments, it's good. I guess historic districts. I was going to talk about schedule at the end. I can flip to the schedule, though, if you just want to come up at the end. All right, let's just talk about the schedule. Oh, where'd it go? Oh, we already talked about the schedule. So 2019 was your concern. This is proposed for construction in 2019.
Just to ask a question, I don't know who said it, but right now, we don't know for sure yet when they're going to do 89.
That's true. It's 89 is,
There's a chance we could be doing them both at the same time, but we're certainly trying not to. But again, it's a little out of our hands.
that's correct,
But
yes.
we only get the money for this one if we do it in 19. That's, the money connected is for 19.
As far as I know, unless any city staff here has heard differently, the County A bridge is still going to be 2019. So WISDOT is redoing the County A bridge over the interstate, or the extension of Mulberry Street. And so there's also the benefits of doing this at the same time, because A coming into town is going to be closed for a period of that construction season already for 19. So it's kind of like if you're shutting down part of it, people aren't going to really be able to come into town from the north anyways. You're losing a good chunk of traffic there. It kind of makes sense to do this at the same time.
And that meeting like this is in November. I
Oh.
remember the date.
Yep,
We just got that letter in the mail this week.
yep.
Remember the date?
No, I don't remember the date.
I think it's early November sometime,
Should
yeah.
have gotten in the mail about
Yeah.
3-4 days ago.
Yeah, and if you didn't get it in the mail, the info should be on the city's website.
Oh, I got it because I was on the council.
Yeah.
That's why I got it. Sorry.
You may have got it in the mail too, I'm not
I
sure.
don't think so.
So during the construction, through traffic is going to be detoured, so we'll still have access to the driveways and everything.
Yes, very good point, thank you. So construction will be staggered. I don't want to say the whole section of the project is going to be shut down completely for the whole length. They might be working on a block or two. I mean, during normal construction process, they won't pave, a block at a time. But there'll be access to driveways most of the time. There will be situations where they're installing water main in front of the driveway, or they just poured the curb and you have to stay off of it for 3 days, or your driveway apron, things like that, where you have limited times where don't want to have access. But the goal with any city project is to try and have it accessible to homeowners. Certainly at the end of the day, we do everything we can to make that possible. But there will be some times where you won't have access to your driveway. So, any other questions about schedule, design aspects? Otherwise, I'll turn it over to Shannon to talk about the proposed historic district. Oh, Steve.
Did you talk about water and sewer already?
Oh, we talked about it, yeah, that it would be reconstructed as part of the project. We mentioned, I mentioned them. Do you want me to talk more about the program, in case anybody here is interested? Yeah, right. So if any of you suspect that you have lead laterals, the city's portion will be replaced anyways, no matter what pipe material it is as part of this project. If you have a lead lateral, the city recently received some money to assist homeowners with replacing their half. Half meaning from the right-of-way line to your house. And they're still working out how to exactly that system's going to work. It's a first time with the program through the DNR, and still working out how exactly that's going to work. But there will be some financial assistance available to homeowners to replace their portion of it. All right.
We'll get a letter in the mail, you think, when the time comes for that?
There are going to be a group of issues that will, 45 days before we think we're going to start construction, we get a letter that says that you might want to start considering replacing what portion of the lead lateral. We probably can have someone in the next 12 to 18 months come through and do an inspection, see if it's lit or not. And then we'll probably again encourage you to do it. And then when we replace it, we'll probably come up and say, if you're not replacing yours, we'll give you a picture that removes lead from the water as you use. Those are the problems that occur. If you apply for the grant, then you'll have a whole set of paperwork that
Is that something that the homeowner I'll get and be able to participate in their?
yes.
We
pay a lot of that. So, but yes, at some point in time, the DNR will tell us what we're going to do. Right now, it's such a new program, we aren't really sure what program is.
Yeah.
The program is being developed by the DNR. You know that we have a grant development. We do have a meeting scheduled for December 1st or 2nd week of December, public informational meeting, very much like this one, to talk about lead issues and that grant. We will be looking at projects like this one and future projects in the coming years that potentially have lead services to the older mains on these projects on South Main Street and Mulberry Street, and a program to investigate which lead services are out there, and then provide information about the funding source and the plan, so that it's planned in advance of the construction. So there will be more information coming.
Great. I mean, if you do a test in front of my house and find I've got lead, please send me a letter and tell me.
Yes, and what homeowners can do as well is look at where that service is coming into their home, take a look at the material that's probably coming out of your basement before the meter, and do a test on that material. Obviously, that's copper. Yeah, if it's steel or lead, you can actually use either a small knife, but if you can make an indentation into the pipe, it's probably lead. It's a steel pipe. Okay. So the lead material is going to be softer and more malleable.
Yeah.
So as a homeowner, you can actually find that or you suspect it is lead, please call the Public Works Department or the utility, and we will provide information and we'll put you on the list that are known lead surfaces, and we'll continue to provide the information. But if you are interested in the program, again, call the number at the utility and provide your name and address, because we are keeping inventory on that.
The other thing is that when we send someone to investigate whether there's lead, we're going to have to get into your house, because we can't tell from the street whether it's lead or not. Someone's going to be coming and knocking on your door and asking if they can go outside.
All right. Shannon?
Good evening, everyone. I don't think I've ever used a microphone before, so is this okay? Am I too loud? Okay. I'm a historian. My name is Shannon Dolan. I'm with Mead & Hunt. As part of the environmental process for this whole project planning, we went ahead and did a survey of historic resources along the proposed project area. And in addition to surveying some of the previously identified resources that are either that range between 40 and 50 years old or older, we identified this historic district, proposed historic district, residential. And I do have some handouts, and if anybody would like, if I don't have enough, I can certainly mail them or email them to you. But for people who live within the proposed district, this is kind of a preliminary boundary that we've identified. So it's roughly bound by Oak Street on the south, and then just north of Franklin Street. And it's basically all the properties that are fronting Mulberry within this area. And the district itself was preliminarily identified as being eligible for the National Register as showing the, I guess, development of the residential development along the project corridor here, which ranges from between 1854 and 1921. Now, there are a couple of resources within the historic boundary that were constructed outside of that time period, and those have been identified as not being contributing just due to the fact that most of the construction of the residences were constructed between that time period. So this is basically the resources, the reasoning why we identified the proposed district. So for any of you who may live within the boundaries of that, there are potential tax credits, and I do have some information. I think some of you all picked some of that stuff up, and again, you can find that information on the State Historical Society's webpage, but I can also provide you with that information as well. But it's basically, if we do go ahead and do a National Register listing in the future, it's basically, just so you know, more of, as we say, an honorific status. It doesn't mean that you can't paint your house, that you can't do certain things to the exterior, let alone the interior. It's just, these tax credits are things that you can use to help you make improvements to your home as part of this process. So, I don't know, does that make sense? Yeah? Does anybody have any questions? Right now, it's proposed. We have, we identified this district. We talked with the State Historic Preservation Office, and we did do, we had them come out, and we did do a drive along the proposed project corridor and showed them the proposed district along with the boundaries, and they agreed with that. However, we have to prepare documentation, which is called the Determination of Eligibility, and that has not been submitted and approved by the State Historic Preservation Office as of yet. So once, if they concur with our recommendation, then they agree that the district is eligible for the National Register. Now, that doesn't mean anything at this point. That just means it's been determined eligible for the National Register. So we're confident that the State Historic Preservation will concur with the recommendation, seeing as how they've been out here, but there is a possibility that they could, you know, once they do their review, there could be changes.
How is that different than if a homeowner historical preservation application process by itself.
You mean in terms of having it be listed for the National Register? Basically, part of this would be that you're not paying for it. This would be something that would be part of the DOT process. It'd be mitigation for the proposed project activities. And that you wouldn't necessarily be doing it yourself or hiring someone else to do it. It would be something that a historic preservation consultant would be preparing on behalf of the entire community, or not community, the district, excuse me. So does that answer your question?
I'm just trying to figure out what the difference was, because I know there's a lot of work if you're going to do it yourself.
Yes, there certainly can be.
History and everything else.
Mm-hmm.
You would be taking care of all of that, so it's basically being done for us.
Potentially, yes. Mm-hmm. And there is information on the Historical Society's webpage if you do want to. There's a questionnaire that you can fill out if you feel that your house is potentially eligible. I believe, based on our conversation earlier, you have one of the Fargo homes. So there is that association with the Fargo family, in addition to the architectural style of the home. And actually, I think your home is one of the oldest along the corridor. That one? Okay. So it... you can certainly look on their webpage, and they have a questionnaire that you could fill out and you could send in, and they will provide you with some feedback there if you wanted to go ahead and do that. So. Yes. Yeah. Yes, that is something that we had done for the State Trunk Highway 89 Main Street project. So as the project gets along a little bit farther and we have a better idea of what the proposed project activities will be and the impacts and all of that, that is definitely something that will happen. Yes? That's once you get to the point, if this is something that you guys want to do in terms of, or as this project moves along, if you're going to do mitigation for the proposed project activities, if a nomination for the residential district is something that is agreed upon, it's my understanding that you have to have a certain number of the homeowners or property owners within the district have to be in agreement that this is something that they want to have happen. You don't have to explain why you wouldn't want to. There isn't anything like that. But you have to have a majority of the people in favor of actually having the nomination done. But again, that's something that once the Historic Preservation Office, once you get to that point, they will provide that information as well and get a little bit more input. So that would be, letters would be sent out to the property owners to kind of get your input, and then a specific meeting would be held for those of you who are located within the district to get your input and buy-in as to what you'd like to do. Yes?
When you're on the map,
Yes.
can you go back to the map?
Yes.
Okay. And my eyesight's not that great, but
Sure.
are there houses on there that are not on Mulberry Street?
No. All of these houses are fronting Mulberry here.
So it's only the houses on Mulberry that are being considered for this historic district.
Right. We did look beyond these areas because there is work that will be done to match in. But because the district boundaries can extend beyond the proposed project area, we do consider that. But based on the information that we've been able to find during research, in addition to the architectural styles, the age of the homes along the corridor, this is the tightest kind of cluster that we've been able to identify that kind of represent that early development along this particular area of the project corridor. And that's not to say that there aren't other historic homes along this corridor. We certainly identified them, and we're including them in our preliminary report. This is just more of a sort of dense area that we're seeing as being more cohesive in terms of the architectural style association with the Fargo family and the time frame of construction of the homes. You're welcome. Anybody else? Okay, thank you.
wanted to just repeat that there's, mailings back here that if you think of anything, grab some of these comment forms, mail them in. And our contact information, again, is mine and Matt from Strand is on the back of the information sheet. The comments, concerns, questions, definitely don't have to stop here tonight. If you think of something comes up, please let us know.
Is that where, if we want to vote or put our opinion in on still wanting parking on one side,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what we do, is we fill one of those out, mail it in?
Yeah, I guess that would be the best way to do it, so that we have a name associated with an opinion or a comment. That would be very helpful. I mean, we are taking notes at this meeting, but I'm sorry, I don't know what your name is. Paul. Yeah. So I mean, if depending on where you live and what people think, that would be great. I mean, you can fill them out and leave them here tonight as well. Don't have to mail them in if you want to take the time. We'll be around, and this is part of why I came back up. We'll be around here to answer any questions. If you want to stick around and talk about any specifics on the project.
It's important to fill those out.
Mm-hmm.
Because what we end up with is we'll go to another meeting, and we'll have a couple of people say, that's a downside of the eyes, and we'll say, well, at the other meeting, they all said that they wanted it that way, but there's no record to verify, and so it's hard to prove. And in the case with the spillway in the dam, a lot of people have come and put all that money in, put opening that hole up again, and I said, I've got all these surveys from public information meetings that we had that said we wanted to open back up. So it's important to have those.
Yeah. Dave, are you catching that on the video? Okay. I just want to make sure in case anybody's wondering out in the public.
Who's the big boss on this project at your level? Like, it obviously isn't you, right?
Well, I guess I'm the I'm the project manager for the design. But there's a.
You're not the one who's going to make the last decision about the parking.
No, I guess that would be the public. City council would be the all. Yeah. I mean, city council would be the end all. Yeah, there you go. So, yeah, and there is, like I mentioned before, some review of what we propose. That say we were to say we want a 20-foot wide road. The WISDOT would probably say, no, that's too narrow, unsafe, doesn't follow our criteria, and we're giving you all this money for it, so you can't do it. So, I guess there's a little bit of a boss, but city council has the decisions on most of the specifics.
Question, one of your original slides, or first slides on there had the cost of the funding that the city's receiving, and since they're tearing out your existing sidewalks, is the property owner going to be held? Are you going to have to pay for any of that replacement sidewalk?
No.
The city's policy is that if you don't have any previous sidewalk, you have to pay a special assessment. Once it's been there, and once you pay your original assessment, then the city covers the cost for any replacement. The biggest issue that you would probably have for your own cost would be the lead lateral service from the property line into the house. And if you qualify for the grant, then you may get out of that. The timeline for when the grant is in place and how long it stays there, and then come up with total, how fast the money goes. I mean, if everybody had a replacement that cost $3,000, we could do 100 people. Well, if you take all the lead services that we've replaced, potential lead services that we've replaced in the last couple of years, plus all the ones on South Main Street, plus all the ones on Mulberry, you might not be in the money. So you want to make sure that you're paying attention to that.
I would also add that sometimes with these projects, homeowners would like to say replace their driveway, concrete, asphalt. If you wanted to replace your non-lead service, your sanitary service, for instance, that's negotiated on a homeowner basis with the contractor, but it often, the city doesn't get involved and doesn't pay for any of the things because it's behind the property line, but it oftentimes is less expensive to do it in concurrence with the project. They're already there, kind of get the benefit of large quantity pricing for concrete and things like that. So just something to keep in mind that if you're thinking about it, it might be worth doing. All right, well, thank you. We'll be around. Thanks for coming, everybody.